Hey my fellow friends, it's Chris from Shughead Gaming, and here's my review for Larcenauts, developed and published by Impulse Gear. Larcenauts releases June 17th, 2021 for the Quest, Quest 2, and Rift S, with cross-buy and cross-play included, and is also available on Steam VR. Price is listed at $30 US. As a huge fan of Overwatch and Hero-based team play shooters in general, I was pretty surprised, although happily, to find out that the follow-up to Impulse Gear's first, and mind you, incredible VR game, Farpoint, over on the PSVR, was looking to deliver that Overwatch gameplay style to VR headsets. Something that we really haven't seen done properly yet. So, if Population 1 scratches that Battle Royale itch, will Larcenauts be our go-to hero shooter? I think it might, but stick around and I'll tell you why. As always guys, if you like this video, please hit that like button. It not only helps out my channel, but VR gaming as a whole. And if you'd like to see more VR content from me, of course, please consider subscribing. And for video updates, you guys know the deal. Make sure you hit that bell icon. And one more thing, I have another channel with Ryan from the VR Grid. He doesn't have a lot of friends, so you should come over and say hi to him. It's called the Virtual Boys Podcast, and on it we take deep dives into the topics that matter the most to VR gamers. So guys, please consider checking that out as well. Alright, enough whoring myself, let's kick things off with a look at graphics. If you've played or even seen games like Overwatch and Paladins, then you will certainly feel right at home here with Larcenauts' hyper-real cartoon visual style. As such, this game isn't going to visually blow your mind, but this style makes a lot of sense and works really well for VR, and especially when considering the lower-powered Quest and Quest 2. Speaking of the Quest version, it actually holds up pretty well here, considering the amount of players, effects on display, and not to mention multi-leveled maps, that while not huge, certainly aren't small either. And with all of this, the Quest manages to keep a clean draw distance and avoid much in the way of texture pop-in. Not surprisingly, Larcenauts was likely designed with the Quest limitations in mind, and concessions can certainly be seen with some lower quality textures, and like I said, a careful eye on map size. But with some pretty strategic texture work, a nice use of shaders, and a careful usage of what dynamic lighting they can muster, the game hits way above its weight class on the Quest, and is easily more visually interesting than the recently released Solaris or Hyperdash, lifted up even further by some above average character animations and detailed weapon models. Impulse Gear blew PSVR gamers away in 2017 with what could actually be pulled off on lower end hardware with Farpoint, and that experience is evidenced here in spades. Unfortunately, but not surprisingly, the PC version of Larcenauts certainly seems to have been reined in order to keep a visual parity across both platforms. As such, lighting effects don't appear to be much enhanced here, nor are much of the textures. That being said though, PC guys, the boost in resolution is quite significant across the board here, with the rather aggressive foveated rendering that hinders the Quest's visuals nowhere to be seen here. The resulting boost to the game's sharpness, as well as a simply more polished look to the game, results in a version of the game that simply feels more in its element here. For as good as the Quest version looks, I could never quite shake the feeling that the Quest was just pulling it off. Additionally, at only 4 levels at launch, level variety here in Larcenauts isn't what I would call diverse, though each level does have its own visual flair and vibe, instantly giving it the edge over something like Solaris, which often felt like just 2 maps despite having 6. All in all, Larcenauts impressed me visually across all the platforms and played well to the visual tropes of the genre and the limitations of the Quest hardware to deliver a very convincing and playable shooter that looks good regardless of what headset you play it on. Sound is up next.
Shield. Calculating trajectory. Engaging.
Like the visuals, if you are familiar with this style of game, then you have a pretty good idea of what to expect here, and as such, you won't come away disappointed, as Impulse Gear has delivered the goods. Outside of some pretty lame one-liners, though I guess that is also part and parcel of the genre, Larcenauts makes very few wrong moves, with a detailed sound mix that not only provides good directional audio, but also ensures each character class has enough identifying audio cues that you know what you're dealing with as you advance up on a firefight, or quickly retreat from enemy fire. This is aided by the developers wisely keeping music to a minimum, allowing the battlefield to fill the sound mix, with music only coming to the forefront in the final few moments of the round. And when it does, the music works, dropping some original EDM tracks that don't suck. Now, a hero shooter wouldn't be a hero shooter without each character having their signature one-liners and sound effects. And while I do think Larcenauts suffers from some slightly generic characters and lame one-liners, they certainly sound the part and come off easily as polished and well-crafted as anything we've heard in Paladins or Overwatch. This level of polish thankfully also carries over to the weapon side of things, with weapons that just sound like you would expect them to in a shooter such as this. And that's a good thing, as I firmly believe that if VR wants to be taken seriously by the masses, it needs games that hit the same level of quality expected in that genre in traditional gaming. And Larcenauts does just that. And that brings us to gameplay. When I first saw the Larcenauts gameplay footage, my immediate thought was, damn, that looks cool, and what a great idea for a VR shooter. But I also couldn't help but worry if Impulse Gear could actually deliver something that didn't feel like a watered-down parody of the titles it so obviously wanted to emulate. So did Impulse Gear deliver? Kinda. Let me explain. For those watching this review and going, okay Chris, you keep talking about Overwatch and Paladins, but I'm a sheltered soul and I haven't played those games. So what are they? Well, simply put, they are multiplayer shooters where matches often center around a certain objective. What sets them apart from other multiplayer shooters is their cast of vastly different characters with very different abilities, strengths, and weaknesses that must work together as a team to really be successful. It is the mastering of each character's strengths and then pairing it with players that mitigate their weaknesses that really endeared me to the genre, as I have always loved multiplayer shooters where team play and communication are key, and everyone gets to be an important part of the win. And that, my friends, is Larcenauts to a T. Now, with a launch roster of only 8 players, I'm not gonna lie, I am concerned about the long-term replay value of Larcenauts, as games like this have traditionally found depth in the multitude of different team makeups. Games like Overwatch had multiple characters representing support classes like healers and tanks, along with a long list of characters that can be paired up with a player's individual playstyle, making for wildly different attack and defense tactics. However, with only 8 characters in a 6v6 shooter, and many of them locked behind a bit of a grind, the match-by-match variety and possible ways of playing are simply not there. Yet. And that is the common theme here in Larcenauts gameplay, as it is a game that is actually really good, and to be honest, much better than I thought it would be. However, I wish Impulse Gear had learned from the mistakes made by games like Solaris and Space Junkies and waited to release the game when it had a little more substance and had a chance to make some key gameplay tweaks based on community beta testing feedback before launching. Here, I'll explain what I mean. Each of the game's 8 characters are unique and fun to play. An early favorite of mine, Thal, would likely be considered a tank class. With his primary weapon being a heavy machine gun, Thal is slow but strong and able to lay down a massive amount of unending damage. In addition, he has the abilities to drop a large team shield or alternatively a personal shield to shield all incoming attacks. This, when combined with a grenade that simultaneously heals teammates while inflicting damage on incoming enemies, and Thal is a vital component to a successful team loadout, and a stark departure from a character like Kalima, who is weak but quick, with the ability to quick dash and slow time, allowing her to get in right behind a character like Thal. I really enjoyed playing these different styles of characters, but I'm concerned with how long this will keep players coming back for more. Thankfully, replay value is somewhat propped up by a much needed progression system, something most other VR shooters need to make note of. Progression is split up amongst a few things. First up is notoriety, which is essentially your overall player level across everything you do in the game, and is leveled by good old-fashioned XP. However, in addition to this, each hero character that you play also levels up independently, rewarding players with a secondary loadout option to that character, and eventually starts to unlock what the game calls power slates. Essentially perks you can equip 2 to any character's loadout out of the multitude you will eventually unlock, and they can range from such things as increased run speed to the ability to carry more ammo. Additionally, the game also has a loot level system that levels up as well, rewarding players with loot crates, often containing XP boosts for specific characters, and the game's currency that can be used at the store to purchase additional skins, ability buffs, and a few of the game's later hero characters. The latter being something I'm not a huge fan of when you only have 8 characters to start with. However, it should be noted this is all in-game currency, so no worries about any pay-to-play microtransactions. So yeah, a decent progression system, and yes, it does help to alleviate the lack of characters at launch, offering multiple loadouts and an incentive to play beyond just having fun. However, I am also concerned about the game only launching with 4 maps. The 4 maps are moderately sized, and while well laid out to accommodate the game's 3 modes of Conquest, Capture the Flag, and Team Deathmatch, I can't say they are super memorable or creative either. That being said, further playtime does show the maps to have plenty of design choices that make for some interesting sniping and choke points. I just wish there were more of them. Unfortunately, the more conservative map size also means the game does not have one of this style of game's most popular modes found in Escort, a personal favorite of mine and a huge blow to find at apps in here in Larcenauts. So, if you haven't noticed yet, my feelings about the game are filled with "it's great, but" moments. Unfortunately, that sentiment carries over to the core gameplay, that while incredibly solid and filled with great mechanics, like the tether grapple and the ability to vault over low objects, it is plagued by some other really poor VR mechanic choices, most of which have been identified on the game's roadmap, but should never have made it into the launch version. The two big offenders are the lack of two-handed gun handling, with your non-dominant hand simply going limp once you grab the gun. It's not game-breaking, but it certainly is immersion-breaking, as is my second complaint, found in the game's run mechanic, that while quick enough, significantly limits the ability to turn, while simultaneously forcing your hands down, eliminating the ability to shoot while running, reload, or even pick up ammo. Consequently, during my playtime, this seemed to be a complaint of everyone I played with. As such, I simply can't understand how this mechanic made it to market. However, like I said, it's great, but as each and every player that echoed those same complaints also praised the game on how fun it was despite these oversights. And that brings me to fun factor in my final review. Is this the Overwatch of VR? Yeah, kinda. Well, it could be. This is a polished and good-looking title by a developer that knows how to get the most out of lower-end VR hardware while letting the PC version shine as well. Unfortunately, as much as Larcenauts impressed me, it also really frustrated me, as I hate seeing a game with so much potential launch light on content and with some puzzling oversights in regards to how players want to play their game. Simply put, I don't want this to turn into another Space Junkies. That being said, the game actually plays faster than I thought it would, a concern I was very vocal about, and most importantly, it's fun, and made even better when with a good group of people. As such, to say this game has lots of potential would be a huge understatement. As you guys may know, I hate numbered review scores and instead rate games on a basis of buy it, burn it, or wait on it, along with some details on who this may appeal to more. Don't like playing online with others? Straight up, this isn't for you, as this is through and through an online-only multiplayer game. Yes, there are bots to fill in for missing players, but this is a game that needs to be played with others in order for it to really shine. Fans of Overwatch, Paladins, or anything similar, this is a game you likely should pick up. It has issues, but does way more right than wrong, and is coming from a developer who has a track record of going above and beyond to support their VR title. I think this game is great and a crap load of fun with friends, but it isn't there yet. As such, I hope the community pays the $30 and stays with the game so it can realize its full potential. Yes, Quest and PC have lots of multiplayer shooters to choose from these days, and only so many headsets to fill those lobbies. I'm not sure if this is going to have legs after a few months, but I suspect it will. Anyways guys, that's it for me. If you like this video, please hit that like button. And if you want to see more content from me, please consider subscribing guys. As always, I'll catch you on my next video.